Thank you, Filomena. Before I could leave my chair over there, I had to promise Almudena that I wouldn't mention any food. So I keep that promise. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to be here today, and it's an honor for me to tell you something about why the Dutch Cadastre and Land Registry support the CROBECO project. Today we watched a new step towards the development of an European system for cross-border conveyancing. CROBECO is no longer just a system for Dutch buyers in Spain. Dutch buyers can also choose the CROBECO approach in Portugal, and as we learned today from Mr. Johnson and Mrs. Osborne, soon English buyers in Spain and Portugal can also profit from the CROBECO approach. So this is a new step, and for the Netherlands it illustrates that our expectations and our decision to support CROBECO were accurate. I want to explain to you why we took that decision to support CROBECO and intend to continue doing so. The Dutch Cadastre and Land Registry recognizes the need to invest in international relations. We are fully aware of the fact that we operate within an international environment. That is why in our plan for policy on a middle-long term, we emphasize the need to invest in that kind of relations and European organizations like EULIS, like Eurogeographics, like the PCC, like WPLA, and of course we certainly want to invest in fruitful relations with and participate in ELRA. We invest in this international relations and participate in international organizations for the benefit of a well-operating cadastre, and it helps our organization to stay open-minded, and by doing so especially for the benefit of the Dutch citizens. So how does the Dutch Cadastre and Land Registry see the importance of CROBECO? Let me start by a little illustration about people in my home country, the Dutch. But I think that what applies for the Dutch goes also for Europeans in general. As you all know, and Mrs. Diana Wallace already mentioned it, you can find the Dutch people everywhere around the globe. Even though we are only with 60 million people, for ages we are internationally orientated. We drive international trade and travel by land and sea in search for trade and happiness. And the past decades, the Dutch are looking for investments in a second home for holidays or an old age pension. By buying a second home in another European member state, people were not quite comfortable due to the differences between and unfamiliarity with national regulations. By making use of the CROBECO approach, the confidence of European inhabitants in legislation and legal obligations needed for big investments in real estate can be improved. We also live in a time when technical developments and financial crises succeed each other quite rapidly. Governments try to recover the confidence in the economy and real estate market. Land registry, and in particular the registrar together with the notary, have the ability and in my view the obligation to contribute to the confidence in the property market, which is one of the primary pillars of the global economy. This is reflected in the CROBECO project. Registrars seek to promote using existing techniques, existing European regulation, and existing responsibilities of notaries and registrars. This means that the more traditional legal professional, who is usually cautious in the use of new techniques and approaches, also needs to innovate more in his work without betraying the confidence he has created to the Dutch citizens. The Dutch citizens trust the legal professional because he protects them from legal risk and uncertainties, and to provide a solution for them and make their dreams come true. Also, technical developments are not standing still. However, legislation is generally determined independent of technology. This means for the legal professional that he has to deal with these challenging developments in the market and the legal risk that it entails. This is the responsibility for the legal professional himself. As I just mentioned in my introduction, Dutch people buy more often a second home in a European country for holidays or as an investment for retiring. To obtain foreign property, the CROBECO project describes the frameworks. The Dutch Cadastre and Land Registry encourage the CROBECO project because CROBECO does not only focus on theoretical analysis and approach, but takes also into account a number of situations that could be tested in practice. This is described in the Common Conveyancing Reference Framework, the CRF, on the basis of respecting existing conditions and regulations. The CCRF is important for the Dutch society because it can improve the confidence of buying property abroad. This is evident from the fact that Dutch buyers can opt for support by home country notaries and partly for legal protection on the basis of familiar home country legislation. That makes them rely on sufficient protection and will serve as an incentive to buy. As the deed is bilingual, they can read the deed in his or her own language. It will give them a true feeling of home country protection, which will be strengthened by having the deed executed by a Dutch notary. Finally, our conclusion is that CROBECO is possible according to existing national and European legislation, and then the neutral land registries should respect and support it. We believe in CROBECO and its innovative approach with respect of the existing responsibilities of notaries and registrars and respect for the existing legislation in each country. There are still many differences between the legal systems and in the techniques being used. CROBECO provides a solution to cope with them. We expect that legal professionals find solutions for these new demands, and today I conclude that that is exactly what happens at CROBECO. It's up to the foreign buyers whether they use these new possibilities, but neutral land registry should explore these existing legal possibilities. Ladies and gentlemen, I congratulate Mr. Antonio Figueiredo and his organization and ELRA with this new step forward. And I hope, but also think, that we can all be proud and confident with this next step. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes. Could you please micro down?
Thank you. I have a question. Mostly we're talking about British and Dutch citizens buying property in Spain and Portugal and having the opportunity of using their own domestic notaries. What happens if a Spanish citizen wants to buy property in Netherlands? Can he use a Spanish notary?
I think that question was already asked this morning to Jacques.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I understood correctly.
Yes, I think he mentioned that it isn't possible.
Okay, so does ELRA...
according to Dutch law. It's not my choice.
Okay, it's an interesting answer. Does ELRA or somebody else here have any statistics on the dynamics of the transactions, or is this just some sort of preparation for sale of real estate in the time of recession?
Yeah.
I believe Win will answer this last question in his closing conclusion.